They humiliated me in front of everyone, took my jewelry, my dignity, everything. My husband stood there with that smirk while his mother handed it all to her. But they forgot one thing: my father didn't raise a fool. And when he walked through those doors, that smirk disappeared real quick. If you've ever been underestimated, disrespected, or thrown away like you meant nothing, this story is for you. Stay with me until the end, because what my father did: pure, legendary, justice. Hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. My name is Gabrielle, and 3 years ago, I thought I had it all. I married Christopher Davenport, a billionaire real estate mogul with a smile that could light up any room and a bank account that could buy half of Connecticut. We met at a business conference where I was speaking about tech innovations. He pursued me like I was the only woman in the world. 6 months later, we were married in a ceremony that made the society pages. I should have known something was wrong when his mother, Constance, didn't smile in a single wedding photo. Not one. She stood there in her designer dress with her lips pressed together like she was holding back poison. His father, Theodore, just nodded at everything she said. And his sister, Bethany? She spent the whole reception whispering to her friends and glancing at me like I was some kind of science experiment gone wrong. But I was in love, you know? And Christopher seemed different when we were alone. He told me his family would come around. He said they just needed time to see how good I was for him. So I waited. I played the perfect wife. I attended every charity gala, smiled at every business dinner, and pretended I didn't hear the whispers at the country club. I pretended I didn't notice how Constance would introduce me to her friends with this tight little voice saying, "This is Gabrielle, Christopher's wife." For 3 years, I tried. God, I tried so hard. I redecorated that cold mansion to make it feel like a home. I supported Christopher's business deals. I even sat through Constance's passive-aggressive comments about my hair, my clothes, my family. "Your background is so interesting, dear," she'd say, like being the daughter of a self-made billionaire was something to be embarrassed about. Then everything changed. It was a Tuesday night and Christopher left his phone on the bathroom counter. It buzzed. Once, twice, 5 times. I glanced at it, and that's when I saw her name, Lauren. The messages were right there on the lock screen. "I miss you. When can I see you again? Your mother said we should be more careful." My hands started shaking. His mother knew. They all knew. I confronted him that night. He didn't even try to lie. He just looked at me with these cold eyes and said, "This marriage was a mistake, Gabrielle. You were an experiment." My mother was right. You don't fit into our world. Just like that. 3 years reduced to an experiment. I felt like someone had ripped my heart right out of my chest and stepped on it. The next week, Constance called a family meeting. She didn't ask if I could attend. She demanded it. I walked into that mansion living room, and they were all there. Christopher, Constance, Theodore, Bethany, and her, Lauren. This blonde woman in a cream-colored dress, sitting on my couch like she owned the place. She probably wasn't even pretty, but in that moment, surrounded by the people who were supposed to be my family, she looked like everything they wanted, and I wasn't. Constance didn't waste time. She slid divorce papers across the coffee table toward me. "We've consulted with our attorneys," she said, her voice sharp and efficient like she was firing an employee. "The prenuptial agreement is very clear. You'll receive a small settlement and you'll leave quietly. We expect you to sign today." I looked at Christopher. Surely he would say something. Surely the man I married wouldn't let his mother treat me like this. But he just stood there by the fireplace, arms crossed, with this smirk on his face. That smirk. I'll never forget it. It said, "I won. You lost. Know your place." Then Constance stood up and walked toward me. "There's one more thing," she said. "The jewelry. All of it. Those are Davenport family heirlooms. They don't belong to you." I was wearing my wedding ring, a diamond necklace Christopher had given me on our first anniversary, matching earrings and a bracelet. She held out her hand. "Remove them. Now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You can't be serious," I said. My voice was shaking. Constance stepped closer. I'm very serious. Those pieces have been in our family for generations. You have no right to them. I looked around the room. Theodore was staring at the floor. Bethany had her phone out, recording. Christopher's smirk got wider. I started with the bracelet. My fingers fumbled with the clasp because I was shaking so hard. I dropped it into Constance's palm. Then the earrings. One, then the other. The necklace. Each piece felt like I was giving away a part of myself. When I got to the wedding ring, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. Please, I whispered, don't do this. But Constance wasn't done. She turned to Lauren and said, Come here, dear. Lauren stood up and walked over with this shy little smile, like she was embarrassed but also excited. And then Constance did the unthinkable. She started putting my jewelry on Lauren, the bracelet first, then the earrings. She fastened the necklace around Lauren's neck while I stood there, stripped of everything, watching this woman wear my life. Beautiful, Constance said, adjusting the necklace. This is what happens when you reach above your station, Gabrielle. You tried to be something you're not, and now you'll go back to being whatever you were before. Bethany laughed. Actually laughed. Christopher's smirk never left his face. They took my car keys. The Bentley was theirs, they said. They took my credit cards. Cut them up right there in front of me. They gave me 24 hours to pack my things and leave the mansion. I walked out of that house in a daze. I got into my old Honda, the one I'd kept from before the marriage because I couldn't let go of who I was, and I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove until I couldn't see anymore because of the tears. I pulled over on some random road and I broke. I completely broke. I sobbed until my throat hurt and my chest ached, and then I did something I should have done the moment this nightmare started. I called my father, Malcolm Rivers, my daddy. The phone rang twice before he picked up. Baby girl, he said, his voice warm like sunshine. I tried to speak, but all that came out was crying. Daddy, I finally managed. Daddy, they took everything. They humiliated me. They gave my jewelry to his mistress while he stood there smiling. I don't know what to do. The line went quiet. Not silent, but quiet in that dangerous way. Then my father's voice came through, and it wasn't warm anymore. It was cold. Deadly. Gabrielle, listen to me. You go to the Hilton downtown. I'm texting you a confirmation number. You check in, you order room service, you take a bath, and you rest. Daddy's coming home. And baby girl, they just made the biggest mistake of their lives. See, let me tell you about my father. Malcolm Rivers built a tech empire from absolutely nothing. He grew up poor, joined the Marines, served his country, and then used his GI Bill to go to college. He started a software company in a garage and turned it into a $4 billion empire. When my mother died of cancer 10 years ago, he raised me alone. He taught me everything: strength, dignity, self-worth. He taught me that nobody, and I mean nobody, gets to define my value. He'd been in Europe on business when all this happened. I hadn't told him about Christopher's cheating because I wanted to handle it myself. I wanted to prove I was strong enough to fix my own problems. But my father always said, strong doesn't mean alone. Even the toughest soldiers need backup. 12 hours later, he walked into my hotel room. He hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe, and I cried all over again. I'm sorry, Daddy, I said. I should have listened to you about them. You never trusted the Davenports. He pulled back and looked at me with those eyes, the ones that had stared down corporate sharks and military enemies. You have nothing to apologize for. You loved someone. That's not weakness. That's courage. But they're about to learn what happens when you hurt a Rivers. My father sat me down and opened his briefcase. Inside was a thick folder. I hired investigators 6 months into your marriage, he said. I know you said you were happy, but something felt off to me, and I always trust my gut. He spread papers across the hotel bed, bank statements, photos, email printouts, legal documents. Christopher's company is drowning in debt, my father explained. The Davenports are nearly broke. Theodore's being investigated by the SEC for fraud. Christopher's been hiding assets and cooking books to look richer than he is. And Lauren? She's not just his mistress. She's his business partner. They've been embezzling money from investors together. I stared at the papers in shock. But everyone thinks they're one of the richest families in Connecticut. My father smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Everyone thinks a lot of things. What matters is the truth. And the truth is they're con artists in expensive suits. But here's the best part, baby girl. You know who owns 30% of the commercial real estate in this state? Me. Through shell companies. And you know who's been renting prime properties to Christopher's business at very generous rates? The next morning, my father made a phone call. Just one. Within hours, Christopher's world started falling apart. Every property lease? Terminated. Every contract? Voided. Christopher's business, which was already struggling, started hemorrhaging money. Banks called in loans. Investors panicked and pulled out. The Davenport empire, already fragile, began to crumble like a sandcastle at high tide. But my father wasn't finished. He had his lawyers file a counter-lawsuit. Turned out the prenup Christopher and his mother were so proud of, it was signed under fraudulent conditions. Christopher had hidden his debts and lied about his assets when I signed it. That prenup was invalidated in 48 hours. The new terms? I was entitled to 50% of everything. Everything. Then came the really good part. My father leaked Theodore's SEC violations to the press. Not illegally, he just made sure certain documents found their way to certain reporters. Within days, the Davenport name was front-page news, but not in the society section. In the crime section. Theodore Davenport, pillar of the community, exposed as a fraud. Constance's charity board positions, revoked. Their country club memberships, canceled. Bethany's trust fund, frozen by court order. And Lauren? She got arrested at Christopher's office. Conspiracy to commit fraud, wire fraud, tax evasion. She was looking at 5 to 10 years in federal prison. Christopher tried to blame everything on her, said she acted alone. She didn't take that well. She turned state's witness and gave prosecutors everything. Every secret account, every fake invoice, every lie Christopher had ever told. 3 weeks after that family meeting, I walked into court for the divorce settlement hearing. The Davenports were already there. Christopher looked like he'd aged 10 years. His expensive suit didn't fit right anymore, like he'd lost weight from stress. Constance's face was hollow, her perfect makeup not quite hiding the exhaustion. Theodore's hands were shaking. Bethany was crying. My father sat beside me, calm and powerful in his navy suit. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The judge reviewed the evidence, the fraud, the lies, the hidden assets, the violated prenup. It took less than an hour. I got the mansion. 60% of all liquid assets. Alimony for life. Christopher's company was ordered dissolved, with assets liquidated to pay his debts and my settlement. Christopher stared at my father. "You destroyed my entire life," he said. His voice cracked. My father leaned forward slightly. "No, son. You destroyed your own life the moment you decided to disrespect my daughter. I just made sure you faced the consequences." The next day I returned to the mansion. My mansion. Constance and Theodore were there, packing boxes under the supervision of my lawyer. Bethany was loading things into a U-Haul truck, her designer nails chipped and broken. Christopher stood in the foyer, surrounded by his failures. I walked through that door wearing every single piece of jewelry they'd stripped from me. My father had retrieved it all through the court order, the bracelet, the earrings, the necklace, plus new pieces he'd bought me, diamonds that actually belonged to me, not borrowed from people who hated me. Constance saw me and stopped packing. For a moment, just a moment, she looked like she might say something. "Gabrielle, please," she started. I held up my hand. "You told me I should be grateful for 3 years of luxury. Let me return the favor. Be grateful I'm giving you 3 hours to leave my house." I pulled a small velvet box from my purse and handed it to her. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside was my wedding ring. "You can keep this," I said. "It's worthless to me now." just like your son's promises." Christopher looked at me. That smirk was gone. Completely gone. In its place was something that looked like regret. "Gabrielle, he began. "Don't," I said quietly. "You made your choice. You stood there and watched your mother humiliate me. You smirked while she dressed your mistress in my jewelry. You treated me like I was nothing. Now you get to live with that. Now you get to know what it feels like to lose everything." That was 6 months ago. I'm standing here today a different woman. I took the settlement money and started a foundation. We help women escape abusive marriages. We provide legal aid, temporary housing, and job placement. We make sure no woman feels as alone as I felt in that living room. I went back to school. I'm getting my law degree because I want to fight for people who can't fight for themselves. Every Sunday, my father comes over for dinner. We sit in the big dining room that used to feel so cold and empty, and we laugh. We tell stories about my mother. We make plans for the foundation. We live. As for the Davenports, Christopher filed for bankruptcy. Last I heard, he's working as a sales associate at a car dealership. No more penthouse office, no more expensive suits, no more smirk. Constance and Theodore are living in a 2-bedroom apartment outside the city. Nobody returns their calls anymore. All their society friends vanished the moment the money did. Bethany had to get a real job for the first time in her 30 years of life. She's a receptionist somewhere. And Lauren? She's serving 7 years in federal prison. 7 years to think about what greed and betrayal cost her. The Davenport name means nothing now. It's forgotten, erased. They thought they were untouchable. They thought their money and their status made them invincible. But my father taught them something important. Real power isn't about how much money you have. It's about integrity. It's about respect. It's about knowing that every action has a consequence. See, they thought I was alone. They thought I was nothing without them. But they forgot where I came from. My father built an empire with his bare hands and his mind. He survived war. He survived loss. You really think he was going to let some fake billionaires destroy his daughter? Not on his watch. And that smirk Christopher had, that smug look that said he'd won, it cost him everything. His business, his reputation, his freedom. I learned something through all of this. They tried to strip me of my dignity that day. They took my jewelry, my home, my place in their world. But dignity isn't in things. It's not in diamonds or mansions or society pages. It's in knowing your worth. It's in standing up even when you're shaking. It's in having people who love you enough to fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. My father didn't just get revenge. He taught them a lesson about respect. He showed them that you can't just throw people away because you think they're beneath you. He reminded them that every person has value. And he reminded me of who I am. I'm Malcolm Rivers' daughter. I'm my mother's legacy. I'm a woman who survived, who rebuilt, who rose from the ashes of humiliation and became something stronger. If this story made you feel something, if you've ever been counted out and came back stronger, drop a comment below and tell me your story. Hit that like button if you believe in karma, because trust me, it's real. Subscribe because I got more stories of revenge, redemption, and justice coming your way. And remember this. Never let anyone strip you of your dignity. You're worth more than their disrespect. You're worth more than their judgment. You're worth more than their cruelty. I'm Gabrielle Rivers, and this is my story. See you in the next one.